would like for them to do is to identify themselves, put on a uniform, put on the white hats like the Ku Klux Klans did in Cairo, to identify themselves so we can know who they are. If not, it's going to be a lot of innocent peoples out here getting hurt. Because the way it is now, brothers saying to me, well, Jeff, these people's talking about they're going to kill us. Well, what we going to do? We ain't going to stand back and watch, let these old people kill us. It ain't going to be no killing without killing.
I don't want it near schools. I don't want it sold to children. That's an infamia. In my city, we would keep the traffic in the dark, people to call it. They're animals anyway, so let them lose their souls.
The future leader of one of Chicago's largest, most notorious street gangs did not have a stellar start to his criminal career. Jeff Fort's first adult arrest occurred when he was second in command to Eugene. Chief Bull Hairston of the Blackstone Rangers was called Lil Chief by other members and indulged his taste for flamboyant, fancy clothes, according to the arrest report. Early in March 1965, Calvin Williams, 21, purchased a pair of gray slacks. They were beltless, cuffless, and tailor-made, and his friends often remarked to him that he stepped in them with noticeable aplomb. He had worn them only a few times when on March 19th, his apartment at 6134 Kimbark Avenue was looted of a television set, radio, phonograph, record albums, silverware, and his treasured pants. While enjoying a walk yesterday afternoon along 67th Street near Blackstone Avenue, Williams spotted a crisp-looking pair of slacks worn by another stroller. He telephoned detectives who had investigated the burglary of his home. Police arrived and took Williams and the youth in his pants, Jeff Fort, of 1504 East 66th Place, to the Southside Detective Headquarters. Fort surrendered the pants to detectives James McDonough and William McHugh, who found Williams' name on the label. In 1966, Jeff Fort convinced Woodlawn Police Superintendent Orlando Wilson to broker a very public truce between the Rangers and their longtime rivals, the Disciples. Wilson trumpeted his supposed achievement in the press, criticizing those who said he should be arresting these hoodlums, not engaging them, and these statements quickly came back to haunt Superintendent Wilson. Within 12 hours of the agreement, 5 rival gang members were shot. This is the Cartoon News Network with the story of how a small-time thief took control of one of Chicago's most violent street gangs with ties to the Italian Mafia.
I think I'm Big Meech, Larry Hoover.
There were some struggles over leadership, but in the end, it was Jeff Fort who emerged as the man in charge. Former social worker Charles LaPaglia.
I guess the overwhelming impression I have of Jeff Fort was that he was a very intelligent person, very insightful.
Police Commander Edward Buckney.
Our impression of Jeff back in the early days was that he was pretty much a pipsqueak, a sneak.
Father Tracy O'Sullivan.
Jeff Fort was a very powerful human being.
Former gang member Kenny Morrow.
For a man not to have no formal education and could lead that many people and run that many people's lives, I would have to say he's wise. We had more fear for him than anybody in the nation.
He was little, he was skinny.
A little skinny kid, but he carried big guns. 9mm's always been his favorite.
In the late 60s, it was bloody in Woodlawn. Jeff Fort's Black Pea Stone Nation and the East Side Disciples were the reason.
There were 8 disciples shot on that corner in that year.
On this corner here, 65th and Woodlawn.
This was the Gaza Strip. And
this was the Gaza Strip?
This was the Gaza Strip.
Which meant what?
To the west was the Disciples, to the east was the Rangers that grew into the Pea Stone Nation.
And the Disciples would come over here, challenge the Rangers, and 8 of them got killed on the corner where those challenges took place.
Right.
But it wasn't just gangs shooting gangs, it was gangs shooting other people too. 20 years ago, the litany seemed endless to then Captain Buckney.
I can think of a robbery where the victims were made to lay on the floor and they were shot. I can think of 2 instances of where persons were dragged out of their house, one out into the alley. They bodily drug him out of the house into the alley, made him beg for his life, and killed him in cold blood.
They were somewhere between 70 and 80 people killed.
In some cases, the actual killing in Woodlawn was being done by children, recruited by the gangs for little more than the glory of belonging. A former gang member speaking on condition of anonymity.
They wanted somebody shot. They give someone a couple of peanut butter sandwiches and jelly and a couple of dollars.
How old was that someone who was doing the shooting?
Maybe 10, 11, maybe 12.
Then, as now, there is a logic in gang leaders using children as killers. Commander Buckney.
What we found out was that Jeff and the main 21, they did very little of the dirty work. They usually put the 12, 13, 14-year-olds up to do the shooting and those kinds of things, because it was very unlikely that they would go to jail.
In 1967, 20-year-old Jeff Fort was no longer satisfied acting as Lil Chief for Eugene Bull Hairston. In 1960, the Black Prince accepted his position as a 13-year-old when his Blackstone Rangers allied with former rivals, the Harper Boys, and a 16-year-old Bull was named the gang's leader. But both boys were men now and facing separate murder charges. The Black Prince beat his body, the murder of a 13-year-old boy, and was released from jail in March 1968. He took the crown and never gave it back. Later that year, he changed the name of the gang from Blackstone Rangers to the Black Peastone Nation, with some saying the P stands for peace or power, others saying it stands for people, and there are few that say it stands for Prince. Regardless, the gang's territory now extended far beyond the Woodlawn neighborhood, and their new leader wanted a new name to reflect his growing federation of stone factions. Bull was found not guilty of murder, but was sentenced from 5 to 15 years in prison for soliciting a 13-year-old boy and 3 of his friends to kill a rival drug dealer. In the 1950s, the neighborhood criminals did the same to the Young Rangers, paying scraps to carry out murders because Young Rangers would get light sentences. Now, the Rangers were grown up and learned from this way of handling business. The young ones enthusiastically carried out the hits because it got them recognized and got them respect. The pay wasn't big, and it really wasn't all about the money. In the murder case Hairston caught, he paid the kids $6 in total to split and gave them a big plate of food according to court documents. Bull's co-defendant, Paul Martin, aka Prophet Paul, was charged with personally overseeing the murder and tried separately, but was found not guilty on all charges in January 1968. Prophet Paul was a wild dude loyal to Chief Bull, who claimed that he was a minister and spiritual advisor to the Blackstones. He wore a Roman collar and held a Bible throughout his week-long trial. On October 4, 1969, Prophet Paul was found killed on the sidewalk at 1506 East 67th. He told the police that he left the gang on July 2, 1969, as Jeff Fort was getting on his ass. Pause. Jeff Fort, who for years gave lip service to the position that heroin was a killer among blacks and that it would not be sold by his gang, decided that the drug was too profitable a business to ignore, and the Blackstones opened the first major heroin drug operation in the history of the Chicago public housing projects in 3 buildings of the Robert Taylor homes controlled by Mickey Cogwell's Cobra Stones called The Hole, with the help of the Italian mob. Newspaper articles from March 1970 detail meetings the year before between Mickey Cogwell and Charles Cranshaw, aka Rico, from the Stones, and members of the Chicago outfit, Joseph Little Caesar DeVarco, Joseph Big Joe Arnold, and mob associate Morris Lansky, not to be confused with famous mobster Meyer Lansky. In 1970, Chicago newspapers first reported that the Blackstone Rangers extorted entertainer Sammy Davis Jr., out of a $160,000 investment in a failed liquor store.
Hey, cats, is everybody cool?
Sammy Davis Jr.? What are you doing up here?
Whatever Frank tells me to do, man.
Hey, Sam, get back in here and carry my golf clubs.
Yes, boss.
Ah, ha, ha, ha.
Ugh. Seems kind of racist, doesn't it?
No, because Sammy's in on it.
Okay. But he's still carrying the clubs.
According to a Chicago Tribune article originally published in November 1987, the Black Stones didn't stop extorting Sammy after they converted to Islam and changed the gang's name to the El Rukins. Entertainer Sammy Davis Jr. agreed to lend the El Rukin gang $200,000 1 year before the gang approached Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi for money, according to testimony Monday at the federal conspiracy trial of 5 El Rukin members. Sammy Davis Jr. agreed to the loan because the El Rukins were very nice people, a spokesman for the entertainer said. Trammell Davis, the government star witness, said he knew that the gang had approached Sammy Davis Jr. in 1985 with proposals to renovate the mosque the gang uses as its headquarters at 3949 South Drexel Boulevard. The 5 gang members are charged with plotting acts of terrorism in the United States in return for $2.5 million from Libya. The Hollywood star agreed to underwrite $200,000 of a $2 million loan for the El Rukins because he knew them as doing good things for the black community, according to his spokesman, Arnold Lipsman. They had helped him out in 1968 when he was in Chicago by volunteering to be his bodyguards, Lipsman said. The entertainer had received death threats while starring that year in the play Golden Boy, he said. One of his former bodyguards, gang member Rico Cranshaw, approached Sammy Davis Jr. for the loan. Cranshaw, one of the defendants in the case, visited Libya in search of money for the El Rukins in March 1986. Wow! Jeff Fort became the godfather of the Black Pea Stone Nation and terrorized Sammy Davis Jr. for years. If you've enjoyed our show, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell because we'll explore the Black Stone Rangers' involvement in the civil rights movement and reveal shocking details about Jesse Jackson's connections to the Stones in an upcoming video.
I don't want it near schools. I don't want it sold to children. That's an infamia. In my city, we would keep the traffic in the dark, people to call it. They're animals anyway, so let them lose their souls.